When I think back on all the fears when I was pregnant, all of them dismissed except for one. The only test the state mandated was genetic. Looking for that extra chromosome.
Hello and welcome to the If We Knew Then podcast. I'm Steven Socks,
And I'm Lori Socks.
and today we are going to have a great conversation about
I hope it's a great conversation. It's a conversation that I've wanted to have for a really long time. Man, right from the start, it's just bothered me. And I think there's been so many other events on this journey that we haven't had the chance to have this conversation, but here we are. So what I want to talk about is when they tell you, or if they tell you, to grieve the child you no longer have, or grieve the child you thought you were going to have, but you don't have now. I really hope people are listening to this going, what does that even mean? Because
I hope so. Right.
Because that is how I felt when Liam was born. And Liam was born. He was born 10 weeks early. He was in the NICU for 75 days. We've talked about that whole experience.
We didn't get his diagnosis until 10 days after he was born.
Right. And honestly, the 10 days leading up to the diagnosis were, for us, so overwhelming and challenging. We had the pregnancy went south real quick.
Looking back at it, I think I wouldn't have stressed so much because I would have seen that the doctors did have a handle on this.
But it's still unknown.
It still was unknown, and it still was
Right.
a high, chances of things going wrong and stuff. But
he was born. He was put into an incubator. We couldn't touch his skin because he was so young, so premature. He was fighting for his life. And every day we are reassured what a great facility he was in, what an amazing doctor. The doctor had saved somebody's, a baby's life that they called Pepsi because he was small as a Pepsi can.
Yeah, or ounces. Maybe
or
it was
ounces.
12 ounces.
He was like 12 ounces, so they called him Pepsi. I mean, it was all of this hope every day. Mom, don't worry. Dad, don't worry. Medical and advancements and all of these things.
All these positive
best
thinkings.
technology.
Yeah.
And then we received the diagnosis before we got to the hospital that morning in a very dramatic phone call. A very dramatic phone call where it was like, we really need to talk to you. You have to come in. Like, I hate that in life.
Right.
Like when you're walking past someone and they go, hey, I need to talk to you later. I'm like, no, we're stopping. We're talking about it now because I'm not going to be in my day. And I'm going to jump ahead. I'm going to grieve the afternoon I thought I was having because now all I'm doing is thinking about the conversation that you want to have later. And it could be a great conversation. Nobody ever tips their hand. It's always just, it's a frustration. So we knew nothing about Down syndrome. We weren't really given any information. The testing beforehand was, I'm stubborn. I don't like people telling me what to do. And when I was pregnant with Sophia and they were trying to tell me this is what I need to get tested, I just was like, no,
well,
because
also
of the risk.
we looked at the risk. Yeah.
And then also, go ahead.
We looked at the risk. Also, Sophia, during her pregnancy, Sophia had a higher markers for Down syndrome. And we were like, well, we're not going to do an amnio. We just decided that, because there were some risk factors. And we were like, well, we'll just deal with it. We'll just figure it out.
It should be every
and Sophia did not have
choice.
Down syndrome. And so when we had this kind of the same thing happening with Liam around the same time.
No, the doctors the whole time said no markers.
Yes, but they did do the
blood
a lot
test.
of
Maybe
blood
I don't
tests
know.
and the remember checking folds and stuff like that.
They checked.
Remember the guy checked for that?
Yes, and he was like nothing.
Right.
He was like nothing.
Yes.
So to me, honestly, to put my pregnancy in danger. And also, again, I don't like needles. He told me there's only like, these are the 3 reasons people get the test. And I did not fall into any of those categories. And so I didn't do it for Liam either. But anyway, now I come back and, so we knew nothing. We knew that the only thing we knew was Down syndrome was big enough that it was definitely a conversation.
Yes.
Right? It was definitely a conversation.
We had some sort of
than
problem.
anything
I
else.
had pre-knowledge of Down syndrome just because you know what Down syndrome is. I mean, I knew the words Down syndrome. I knew what that was, but I didn't know, what Down syndrome was. I didn't have experience with anybody with Down syndrome. And but actually it was negative. That was my thoughts on Down syndrome.
You didn't have kids in your classroom?
No.
And also the way the doctors kind of presented, like, it was a relief, like you don't have to worry about that. All of that. And it was all unfounded and also unknown. We received the phone call at home. It's very dramatic. Come in, we need to talk to you. And that's when I got stubborn and I was like, no, if the doctor wants to talk to us and you're making this call, you tell us right now. I'm not driving quickly. Like, I thought Liam died. Like, honestly, I thought something terrible had happened. And
well, in the doctor's mind, something really terrible had happened.
Hence the conversation. But then they told us, and it was so dramatic. I mean, this is a boy who was born at 30 weeks, who was fighting for his life in the NICU, was lungs, all of these things that were actual realities of what Liam was existing with right now because he was so premature. Like, that was the reality, was so heavy. It was as if all of that, all of those unknowns, this superseded.
Yes. It definitely was a diagnosis I didn't want to get. It was, and I had made it so big because of not knowing. It was very dramatic and very. I was upset. We cried. We were upset.
I think
It was terrible news
because
how it was presented to us.
Yes,
in our life and the doctor.
Right. We've had many conversations with parents too that then feel guilty that was their response. Like, I feel and this is the reason why we have this podcast, is because the way it was presented and everything that we felt in that moment was so unnecessary. It was so unnecessary because the reality of it was that everything Liam was fighting for, his life in a very real way, was definitely larger than his extra chromosome. Mm-hmm. But we picked ourselves literally off the ground, drove into the NICU, met by the terrible geneticist that we've spoken on and spoken with other people and their experience with geneticists and the inappropriateness and the archaic beliefs that they propagate and the stories that they propagate that are behind. See that circle? It's that cyclical thing. Then the light that was supposed to be at the end of the tunnel after being told by the geneticist you could have been tested, implying that Liam's life, like, why did you even have this baby? That's, and to me, it's so beyond what should be said to a parent. Like, and I don't know if there's any other group of parents where this is acceptable.
No.
Right?
Like, actually, it should have been, we saw how strong Liam was for 10 days. Getting out of your body early and how well he's fighting so far in 10 days. Hey, we found out he has an extra chromosome. Aha, that might be why he's so strong. Like, there should be that attitude of like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, why not propagate superhuman strength at that moment? Yes. Like, why not propagate that lie?
Yes, but there's obviously not an equal idea of the lives, right? Of a life with Down syndrome and a life without. It's not thought of as
it's not
equal.
Presented.
Mm-hmm.
It's not presented in the, hopefully that's changing. To us, it wasn't presented as equal, and it's behind the fight for his education and all of those things.
And so we were told, take the time to grieve the child you thought you'd have.
Yeah, that was from the geneticist, and then followed up by the NICU doctor and the nurses, and that was what we were told to do. Now, in the moment, I didn't even understand what that meant. Like, I'm looking at a baby, still same baby, still same fight. And now I'm told to grieve that baby. But not even grieve that baby, grieve what I thought he was going to.
Grieve an entire lifetime.
That I thought. And I don't even know how to wrap my head around that, because as a parent, what I learned from having Sophia was, let them show you who they are. You can have goals for them, but she's going to choose. She's going to make choices. She's
The
going to be
wonder of what their life's going to be. Wonder what she's going to choose to do with her life. I wonder what her hobbies are going to be. Wonder what her interests are going to be. Wonder where her gifts are going to be. Wonder what her struggles are going to be. That's all going to come out in a life. But when it comes to Down syndrome, maybe we have this idea that, that life's already defined.
It was definite. No, I don't think we have that idea. I think that's what the idea of society. Mm-hmm. That's definitely where that comes from. So this is what I want to talk about. When they told me to grieve my son, and maybe it's because who I am, right? They put that label on Liam. A very similar label had been put on me as a child. And so immediately I was triggered to be like, what? Like, no, you don't tell me who my child's going to be. But the idea of grief, the idea of the weight of that word, because I've known grief. I've known real loss. I've known death, and that, like, we're not turning back. Like, it's done. There's a finality. Most everybody's experienced loss and grief. It's not something I ever took lightly. And especially when our son was in a little plastic, what they called kangaroo. I couldn't touch him. I slipped my hands through these little holes, and they're telling me to grieve him and what I thought he would be, or the life. I don't even think I can say the sentence right, because it's so dumbfounding that this would be what people would think that I needed at that moment.
And also what professionals are presenting to parents who are at a vulnerable place, and probably just accept it. Just accept that type of talk.
Yeah.
Accept that idea. Because it does go with what all our preconceived notions and quote-unquote experience without experiencing Down syndrome as children, as young adults, as adults. We aren't around people with Down syndrome for the most part in the educational system or in the communities, because they're taken away from us. And so you just go with the stereotype, and then you get this information, and it just goes right along, and you can accept it very easily. I think it's not until you experience a life and your life with Down syndrome that those things can change.
And sometimes they do predestine, like that first part of your experience. It definitely, the impact of someone telling me to grieve the life I thought my son was going to have. I don't.
We as a society, as humans, we like to make things defined. And an easy way to do that in experiences is just to have these quotes, these taglines, these sound bites that aren't rooted in real experience all the time.
It was a form of, it's like bullying. Honestly, if I'm going to break it down, like, it's bullying. You have vulnerable parents that at that time could have actually just used some like space and some real information. Honestly, that same hope that was unfounded. You have a baby that was born at 30 weeks that's living in an incubator that can't even be touched, right? And you're just you're force feeding hope to parents. And you're doing it because you know how important that is to the parent, to the situation. And you know that if you say, hey, I want you to know that baby's born at 30 weeks, these are the challenges that are very real. These are the things that need to develop. These are the things that can go wrong. This is the, the chance that they're not going to make it through this. That's not the conversations. They were like, we're going to take it day by day. We're going to monitor. We're going to give him the test. We're going to give him the support. We're going to be right there. He's going to have 24-hour coverage. You're going to have a nurse by his bed. Like, that was before the diagnosis. That was the story that needed to continue. But for some reason, they thought that we needed to know, or we needed to think, hey, this is going to be really bad. Like having my baby in my arms be taken out of my arms in the delivery room and put into an incubator. And at 10 days, I still can't hold him. Like, that's not bad. And it makes me so mad to think, because we were in this haze. We were in this.
Like I said, we were very vulnerable.
We're vulnerable and just open, and we were told to grieve. And I just want to tell you, no. You do what you want to do. You feel what you want to feel. But no one gets to tell you to grieve. Like, what that insinuates. Like, first of all, it goes against everything that society is always like, go on Instagram for these like wellness checks. It's be in the moment. Let things unfold. Go, like you create things, like all of those things. Like, it's you can't be in the moment and be out there at the same time. And you can't look at out there as being a loss or something that's wrong or something that's less than, because it's not. First of all, it's not. It's not.
No.
And no one has the right to say that to you. And this is why we wanted to have this. It isn't just like the talk about the inappropriateness. We know it's inappropriate. Like, it's wrong what is said to parents, but for someone to tell you to grieve the child, did I really think that far in the future? I can grieve the fact that I can't hold him right now. But it isn't even grief. It's like a longing to hold my child.
Well, we've talked about it so many times. The things that went through my mind was like simple things that you forecast in your brain of what, as a parent, what that means.
Yeah, like what were you grieving when they
was
said
like
grieve?
Throwing the ball with my son, some sports, or hanging out. In my mind, I wasn't like, oh, are we not going to be like walking around a museum together? Are we, like you think of the things that you actually would like not experience. There's nothing. There's nothing you're not experiencing because someone has Down syndrome. And there's so much more you experience. I feel like it's made me such a deeper person because I see such honesty. So it's hard for me to think that a professional would go to you and go, your child has Down syndrome. Let's celebrate. Now,
That's what
I feel that. I remember just years ago, someone find out that someone's friend was going to have just had a diagnosis that the child was going to have Down syndrome, and I went, "Oh wow, that's fantastic." Health reasons we can look at things, but I mean that's everybody has health things we just need to be thoughtful of. But the idea that you're experiencing this intimately, maybe that's going too far for a professional to say that, but the grief should not be there.
Well, I think I think this is it. It's like it's the professional's opinion. So I'm pretty sure that it's like bedside manner, information, diagnosis. What does that mean? Here's what that is. And here's the tools we have. Now, here are some of the things that can happen that are under, the presence of that extra chromosome. These are the actual percentages, but these are the things that we're going to look for. This is what we're going to test for every year, and this is what you're going to do. These are the services that are available. These are the suggestions for early intervention. Let's start speech very early.
And I know we've come across a lot of
Let's get
people that were presented this information by a geneticist that did present it in
just like that.
Just like that. I know there's hundreds of them, maybe thousands of them in the country in the world that are presenting it that you go, wow, that's fantastic. I think they're a minority, but it would sure be great to see more of that. We did not experience that. And we're happy if you did.
Yeah, but I think the reason why I want to have this conversation is because of the weight that was given to me and the power that those words have over your experience, over those initial days, over bonding with your child. And I was mad that they tried to impose something that's not real. And yes, all that information is give me the real information. Give me the information that actually helps me, that you would do with any other diagnosis. Okay, the heart, these are the surgeries. They know what they're doing. One of the reasons that there was such a low life expectancy was because that they didn't do life-saving medical treatments. But I want to get back on topic. It's if they tell you to grieve the child you thought you were going to have, I mean, no. That's just nonsensical. There's no space for it. It's not going to help you. It's not something that they tell other parents. And how many other parents have been really upset because they really wanted their kids to go to LSU, but they're not. Like, they really wanted their kids to love theater, but they don't. And I am not in any way minimalizing things. But I'm trying to give perspective is as I've experienced my life with Liam, what I see is the message of grieve your child definitely is what creates the challenges I get in fighting for his equality in a classroom. It's how I fight society's misperceptions of him, but they're slowly diminishing because of social media. But it doesn't belong on this journey, because if there's anything that happens, that grief is actually the emotion it evokes. That's a personal experience. We all grieve in different ways, but the presence of an extra chromosome is in no way the death of a beautiful life.
There's nothing to mourn about.
And the truth is that having that extra chromosome, which is a very distinct group, there's a lot of information that you can receive that actually helps you. And, when you're fighting for your education, I know a lot of friends who are like fighting to get supports for their student who has a different diagnosis. And it's hard because it's like this gray area where administration will say, well, in some ways, no, they don't need help. But if they're trying to get them out of the classroom, they'll say, oh, we can't do that. Liam has an extra chromosome. It's undeniable. And the supports are there. That is really what the experience should be, is like, there's no nonsense to it. My son has a diagnosis. He gets an equal education with the supports he needs. These are supports. That's how it really should be used. I've grieved and I've lost people that I will never hold their hand. I can talk out loud to them and ask them questions and wonder what they might do. But they walked out the door, and while I walk this planet, I only see them in memories. And I grieve them. I grieve them because they're gone. And I grieve them in a way that I've never felt about my son's life. I've never felt that about Liam. I've been scared when he needed to get tubes. I've dreaded going into an IEP. I've not eaten before an annual because, the list. But I didn't grieve him.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you were mad. You've said that a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that that's how you reacted, because of my experience, and my experience with Down syndrome. We've had this discussion before that I didn't experience Down syndrome, but you still have an experience when you see the words Down syndrome. You have a list of things in your mind what that means. And because of how I was brought up, I saw it as being such a negative and such I had a list of stereotypes of this, what this child potential would be, which was little. And so I am, if you had said, oh, okay, and we just go along with it, I would have gone along with it. Even if you had just a whatever reaction, my reaction was, oh, I will go with whatever the geneticist is saying, whatever the head of the NICU is telling me, and I will just believe it. And okay. And that right away would hinder Liam's potential. I mean, you do that to any kid.
The family.
You can hold your kid back. I mean, please. But the fact that you were mad and that you rejected it right away. I went, what? I mean, like, okay, let me rethink this. Just like when it was like, you know what? I even was like, Liam's going to go to college if he wants. And you said, Liam's going to go to Harvard if he wants. So that was the way you thought. And and you've brought me that way. I'm obviously then experienced Liam, and we see that his potential is still whatever it's going to be for him, wherever he wants to go. But I just want to relate with anybody out there listening that I would have easily fallen into the trap of thinking very little of what my son would become. And that is not the way you want to start parenting an infant.
Not for you. I mean, you don't need to start like that, like just being sad all the time. And I already feel like there was a bit of my first days and months and year even with Liam that was robbed. Like I was robbed of, because no matter what, like, I mean, I rejected it, but then, you have people people that that are like, oh.
And
like,
every professional you run into.
Except for our pediatrician, Dr. Kleiner, who's
yes.
amazing, amazing. And that's what everybody needs. But yeah, you're right. And I'm telling you, the reason why I felt this way is because I knew, like, I was an orphan. I grew up in the system. Nobody thought anything of my life. For the majority of my life until I was on my own, people spoke limits over me. People told me what I wouldn't be. People laughed at my dreams. And I wasn't going to let other people determine or even have like the audacity to speak words over Liam's life. And that is what made me go, no. To that Jeanette, I was like, no. Because I knew what that felt like for someone to say you're nothing, you're not equal, your life has no value. And that's what she was saying about my son. And I'm saying, first of all, I'm standing before you and I got through every single person who thought the same thing about me. So you don't tell us who Liam might have been, because you have no idea. I have no idea that is just like the stupidest sentence. And I'm just going to call it. I'm just going to call it and just say, that's stupid. Just stop. Nobody in your life gets to tell you what your child didn't do. That is like the most just inane statement. Like everything is unknown. Nobody knows anybody's life.
But they talk about it as if it is directly known.
Yeah, they plant this seed in your brain and it's someone that you're supposed to rely on. You might take that seed. You might believe them. And I don't want you to believe them. I want you to experience. But I want you to feel whatever you want to feel. Whatever you want to feel. You feel what you want to feel. Not what someone tells you you're supposed to feel. Mm-hmm. And you experience what you want to experience. And you be there with that baby. The person who's in front of you. That's a new life. That's a blank slate. And I'm going to tell you, it is a cool kid. Because the qualities that I've actually experienced, the honesty, the lack of ulterior motive, the strength, the courage, the determination, the not gonna stop attitude, those are actual characteristics that I've seen in my son. That's the real experience. Even in the NICU, when they're telling me to grieve my son, and I'm like, do you know he's in there fighting like a rock star? I mean, he's fighting like a rock star. He was so tiny. He was so tiny. His entire head fit in the palm of my hand. This little hand, his entire his entire head. And that was not until like however many days when we could hold him. So when he was born, it was he was tiny and he was fighting. And he was strong and he was able to be whatever he wanted to be. And that is the truth. And
that is the truth.
And I know you have a lot of emotions, but that is the truth. Yeah.
And you're going to get a lot of information. You're going to get information from ChatGPT, from family members that don't know anything.
Grandma Ellen.
Hopefully you get some of this information that we're giving you. Have that mean as much as when the Alexa tells you something or when you Google search something, from real experiences. And if you have a child with Down syndrome and are now decades into this, you know what we're saying. But you can probably relate too with what you were told and how that affects things for yourself and your child.
Because now I just really quick. The second piece of advice, it wasn't the piece of advice. The support to grieve your child was followed up by an article. And I don't know how many copies of this article that we received or how many times the story was presented to us.
Hey, I came across this and then we said,
I wanted to share it with you, or I read this and this, and so many, and I have really experienced so many parents on this journey that are like, oh my goodness, I love this story. It really meant a lot to me. And honestly, and this morning when I was Googling it, because I was like, what is the origin? Because one thing that's very important to me across the board is when I'm repeating something that doesn't originate from me, I want to know what story I'm telling. I want to know who said it first, whatever it is, right? I want to know where that cliche came from, that soundbite, whatever it is, I want to know. And this was not a popular opinion. And right now
This is not a popular opinion.
Right. And I just ask you if it's not the same opinion you hold, that you listen to what I have to say, because the story about Holland and going to Holland, I had the same physical reaction to someone handing me a story about a woman who got on a plane going to Italy and all the great things she was going to see, and got off and they were like, welcome to Holland, and all the disappointments, but hey, they have wooden shoes and windmills and this, and
It'll just be different.
But it's not Italy. What? First of all, if I'm from Holland, I'm like, you know what? Don't come visit me. Like, what does that say to people who live in Holland? First of all,
I think it's
how rude and inconsiderate to every human who lives in Holland.
I think the idea is that you thought this, but you got this. And Holland and Italy aren't totally different. There's humans there, and there's cities, and there's buildings, and there's food, and there's places to walk, but they're all different than what you thought you were going to have. And I think my first experience is, no, it's not all different.
But also, it's like,
it's not a totally different place.
I want to say that I think it's more apt to go, welcome to creme brulee, because here it is. I remember going to this diner and I ordered this dessert, and it was supposed to, I forget what it was, like something chocolate, because I love chocolate. And I was so looking forward to this dessert. And they were like, they came and I ordered it and they were like, oh, I'm sorry. They came back. Sorry, we don't have this whatever chocolate beautiful dessert. And they said, but we do have creme brulee. Have you ever had it? And I was like, no, I've never had creme brulee. What is that? And they told me it's a custard.
Heard this story.
No, this is me. I'm telling you right now.
No, I've never heard
But it's for real. This is what I feel like it should be. Maybe I'll write welcome to creme brulee, because then like they, and there's the crystallized, you can have it warm if you want, which is like on top, and it breaks the crystal. And they brought it to me and I'm like, what is this? It surely can't be that chocolate lava, whatever. And they brought it to me, this creme brulee with this crystallized sugar caramelized on top, and I broke into it. And oh my gosh, if it wasn't the best freaking dessert I've ever had in my entire life. It was unexpected. I'd never heard of it before. I've never tasted it before. It had no chocolate in it whatsoever. And I am a chocolate lover. And that I will order any day over a chocolate lava cake, which I can get in the Trader Joe's frozen section.
And what that story has that the Welcome to Holland story doesn't have is that the Welcome to Holland story isn't like, now we're in Holland and this is such a better trip than Italy could ever have been.
But it's not even about being better. It's just amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, I got off in Holland. Wow. What did it look like? What was the land like? What was the space? What were the colors? Tell me how fantastic Holland was. If that's your story, I never even knew, but whoa, here I am. And that without telling me it's worse, or Grieve not going to Italy, that's like, that might be the experience. But don't tell me Grieve and now you get wooden shoes. Like wood, like that's.
And a different language.
I mean, but Italian is a different language. Like
No, I'm saying Italian and Dutch. You might have been preparing for Italy, and you've got like a book of
You've packed
Italian,
well.
and so you've
And
like
if you
been
don't-
practicing your Italian for 6 months.
What do we say? Like you land, well, if we don't have it, we buy it. They have shops. You need to buy a sweater. I don't know the climate in Holland. Do you need to buy a sweater? Buy a sweater. But don't grieve the swimsuit you had. Like what is that? What is like I don't so I know it's not popular. It's so unpopular. Very few people know. I don't like that story.
Your opinion's so unpopular.
My opinion.
The story is very popular.
The story is very popular. I just Googled it and it said 3 days ago, someone was like, this story means
Let's keep
so
in
much.
mind that story was written in 1987.
And the woman who wrote
which
it.
very, very little of what was written in 1987 is something that we should just take for gospel when
Or
it's given
propagate.
to us.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to rethink these things in a new light, at least in the 2000s, but not even. I mean, that's 25 years ago, right? So we need to think now. And we've come a way so far from 87.
You use the R word in 87.
Sure.
In movies. Go watch them.
Sure.
You use the
In the
R word
2000s.
in IEPs. Like because when my first IEP or second, maybe third IEP with Liam, that was like
MR,
yeah.
right.
Right? But here's the thing. The person who wrote that story was doing her best.
Sure.
The person who wrote that story was revolutionary in the fact that she raised, I would assume, raised her child. And that was her experience. And she was just trying to relate to people of the time who definitely would not have accepted, hey, it's creme brulee.
Yeah.
Like, but it was a reflection of the time. That is definitely a mindset because, like, before 1987, I think it was around that time that we discovered the institutions that people with Down syndrome were being put in under the guise of being alternate places of education. Before 1987, children were in the 1950s, children were taken away from their families and put in these institutions because those children were going to destroy the fabric of the family and family values.
Yeah, her son, who's 50 or 51 or so, was born just after probably times where you would just be asked in the hospital if you even want to take this child home. There's an option here to just leave the child at the hospital.
So the story is this beautiful mother who wanted to relate to people and an advocate of her time that really, like, she actually made Down syndrome a conversation, and the fact that the people who gave us the story were normally people who didn't have children with Down syndrome. Actually, it was the priest at the church and
family members
mailed it. And so I want to honor that mother who brought Down syndrome, that was a conversation in the positive. I think her son was on Sesame Street. Like, she was bringing Down syndrome to the forefront. She was making it a conversation. But we've grown and we've evolved, and we need to stop telling parents to grieve the trip you didn't have, to grieve the child you didn't have, because it's not the truth. It's never been the truth. I think it was reflexive of society, but it is not reflexive of the child you are holding in your arms, or depending on how old your child is. It's not reflexive of that human. So with full respect and gratitude for the story, it's just not the story that we need to keep telling. And I never liked it. I didn't like it because it told me again that there was something less about my child. And no one gets to tell you that. No one has that right to speak those words over your child. I'm not here to judge anyone. This is all our opinions, but the two things that, like, Liam's 16, and two of the things that have just infuriated me for the entire 16 years is grieve the child you thought you were going to have, as if I had his life mapped out, which I don't know. I think some people do. Some people
do
are
that.
people are that organized. I'm not.
No,
You're
people just forecast what things are going to be. I mean, what their job is going to be, what their own career is going to
Right,
be,
but
what their relationships are going to be.
And I think for the most part,
Nothing's going to be what
for
you
the
think it's going to be.
for the most part, those people are disappointed on a
Sure.
regular basis. Like,
Sure.
I mean, your dad wanted you to go to business school.
Yeah, maybe he's
and you went
disappointed
to
in me.
no, I'm not saying he's disappointed in you, but I
Yes.
think like we've talked about that.
totally.
Wait, you want to do
He
theater?
would never have thought
theater
that I'm going to have
acting?
the life I'm having.
No, because he was like, wait, he had his ideas. Business was safe. And he wants
Mm-hmm.
you to, but it came from, he wants you to have the best life. And all parents want their kids to have the best life.
Mm-hmm.
And they can only like come from where they come from to think this is what I think would
Mm-hmm.
help that along the way. Right? This is what I think. And a lot of times it is not what that think for themselves new life has really mapped out for themselves, right? Like it's not. And so, but nobody writes that about the neurotypical child. Nobody has that conversation. Nobody tells the parent of, like, if you're going to say it to parents of children with Down syndrome, you need to say it to every parent. And I think that might actually be a good conversation to go, you know what? Let go of your expectations. Let this child be who they're going to be.
Let them
Support
show you
them.
who they're going to be. Support them.
Help them to grow.
Yep.
Be
Give
there.
them all the support.
Give them all the support. You can give them all the advice. Do it with
Yep.
love and without like expectation. Now that would also be a different story, and that's how you can present it to individuals whose child happens to be born with an extra chromosome. That would be helpful, but I think that would be helpful for every parent. For the parents who are out there or caregivers who are out there, if I can bring a little bit of ease, or if you're feeling that way over these words and it's not a popular opinion to have, you're not alone.
Or
And-
if you just want to look at something a little different, that
Yeah.
maybe we're having a different take than you are.
Yeah.
It's good to have those.
And if you did, and if that Holland story got you through, then I'm
All
so
All for it.
happy. I'm so happy that it helped. It just, it was just because of who I am that it was just like, like, it's just me. That's just me. It's 100% on me, because I think again, like if you would have been given this story, you might have been like, Holland, I've never been there before. It's a very subtle seed of inequality and less than that's planted.
But it's there. It is less subtle than the grief, but it's there.
It's very,
And we know, and many more than not, parents know when you're not very far in this journey with someone with Down syndrome, and Down syndrome is a part of your life, that grief isn't there. Grief isn't there anymore. Even if it was set in your mind, which can disrupt things early on, it's not there. You're not grieving. There's so much love. You're loving your child. I've said this for the whole time we've had the podcast. People with Down syndrome today are doing things that were thought to be completely impossible 10 years ago. They're doing things that most people would say is impossible in their own life to do. Let nothing surprise you. Let it all be available. Let it all be reachable and attainable. And keep reaching. And potential doesn't end. We don't reach something and hey, there we go. We're always, for the entire lifetime. We wish you so much joy, so much life rather than grief. Thank you.
yeah, you're doing a great job, and we celebrate you.
Please follow us on Twitter at If We Knew Then Pod, and you can drop us a line on our Facebook page at If We Knew Then Pod, or visit our website, ifweknewthen.com, to send us an email with questions and comments. And you can join our mailing list there and get alerts of future podcast episodes. All these links will be added to this episode's show notes. Thank you again, and we look forward to you joining us on the next episode of If We Knew Then.
Chromosome